Welcome to Seizing Valor, where we discover God's path for manhood, one conversation at a time. I'm Joe.
I'm Josh.
I'm Zack.
All right,
It's name redacted.
Oh, the sound effects are back, thank goodness. I was
But yeah, I
itching
have
for
it back today, guys. I kicked the lazy bug and I plugged it back in.
Yeah, because what is this podcast without sound effects? Does anybody really listen for the words that we preach or for the sound effects that we
they just want the
mix
sound
in there?
effects. I think I'm pretty sure.
Maybe we should throw one in every 10 words or something, and the people will keep listening. Or we'll have sweepstakes or something. Be like, if you can spot this sound effect in the episode, we will give you
a gift card to
something that you don't
Dave
care
and Buster's.
Dave and Buster's. Oh, I love Dave and Buster's. You remember?
You go.
Wait, no, you weren't there, Joe. The year before you showed up for swim team, we went on training trip. Was during New Year's. We went to Dave and Buster's for New Year's.
That place is so good.
It was my first time at a Dave and Buster's. It was a lot of fun. I will admit.
Did you win it?
I love
it's
Dave and
adult
Buster's.
Chuck E. Cheese, but
Yeah.
it is. Except
Claire
for
and I have gone
three.
We've done 3 dates there, Claire and I, and we've gone once with all of her siblings, and it's just so much fun.
The fact that you can buy an Xbox or a Nintendo Switch with a gajillion points, but you can still the hope of that is just it's astronomical, but it's possible.
But the amount of video games that you have to play.
You need to live there.
You end up spending more in the points than you do actually on buying the devices.
Yeah.
You actually have to do that reconnaissance mission where you have to find where the most tickets are. It's like what game's the best to turn on the tickets?
I think somebody figured that out once, and it was the ball dropping game. Have you seen that one where it's you hit the button and the balls drop into the cups?
I'm addicted to that one when I'm at Dave and Buster's. That's the only place I wanted to hang out.
Somebody figured it out. If you hit it 5 times in each cup, then you get it. If you hit it 5 times, and then you win a lot. You get a ton of points, 300 or something points, which I think is a lot. I don't remember. It's been a while since I went.
There's definitely YouTube hacks. I'll take a look next time.
That's gonna be our next trip. Where's our closest Dave and Buster's, boys? Where are we gonna meet?
Is there one where you're at, Josh? Next trip?
There is, yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Go to the mall.
There's not one in where I live. We have to go all the way to Philadelphia. I think.
Yeah, next time we come here, we'll do it. We'll do a big outing with we'll get Claire's siblings and we'll.
Yes. Tune in. We'll give you live updates from Dave and Buster's.
We'll do a live stream at Dave and Buster's. I'll bring podcast equipment. I'll set it up at the tables.
Who is this? The real Seizing Valor were the friends we made at Dave and Buster's.
Along
Dave and Buster's. All the tickets that we got along the way.
And now we have very cheap water bottles to prove it.
I actually have I have the tremendously huge tin canister. From Dave and Buster's. It had a huge handle which broke off because it was plastic. Yeah.
I got a bunch of
mugs. A lot of points
mugs.
still on it. Might be good. I don't know.
I think it's a year. It lasts a year.
No, not good then. Not good. Very not good.
Yeah.
But,
very expired.
Love it.
So,
all right, gents. How are y'all doing this week?
Yeah, how was our week?
Zack, you go.
All right. Okay. I'll try to cover most of the happenings are kind of occurring in the weekend. I had actually quite a busy weekend. Job's still going fine. I guess part of the weekend will cover that. So my weekend started on Saturday. So hunker down, everyone. I'll try not to be too long. So Saturday was actually my free day, and I'm like, okay, I've got time, I've got space. What do I want to do? And so I'm like, you know what? It's really nice out. I'm gonna go hiking, at first I was like, I'm going to go running, but then also hiking. So it kind of turned into riking of it was partly running, partly hiking, but that's a different elaboration. So apparently behind my house, just 10 minutes, there's just a huge mountain, part of the Appalachia. It's just right there. And there's trails back there. So I'm like, okay, sweet. So I drive all the way up there and I start to, and so I hop out and there's one trail. It's a mile long trail to get to this whole other network of trails. So I hike all the way down there, and then you get to the point where there's marked trails. So here's the red trail, here's the blue trail, here's the white trail, yada yada yada. So I'm gonna stay on the blue trail because I really don't know where I'm going. Reception's pretty bad, so I really can't like get too much of a map. So I'm just gonna stay on the red trail. I'm just gonna keep going. So I go, and I'm like going through the woods, and I pop out in this like field space. So have you guys ever seen like with trees, like the power lines, like where the power lines go, like they have to clear out all the trees. So it's just kind of like this like hallway or corridor of just like grass, and then like it goes back to being woods again. So there's this space, and I'm like, oh, this is nice, and it's like I can see the tip of the mountain is just like right there, and it's like, oh, but like I should stay on trail. I need to stay on trail. I need to keep going. I don't want to get lost. So I go across and into the other woods, and I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be a loop. So when I come back around, I'm going to pop out, and like I'll be able to go see the top of the mountain when I come back. So I come back around, and I pop back out, and it's like, oh, okay. But the mountain looks a little different, but I swear this is still the same spot because there's peak, there's valley, like I'm in this corridor, like, okay. So I go up to the top of this mountain, and it's really nice. Have a nice little God moment. It's like, oh, it's like I can see like forever. It looks really nice. So I come back down, and then I continue along the red trail, but then the red trail ends at a dead end. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. So I go back to where I was, and I'm like, maybe I came out at a different spot on the slope. So maybe I need to go down further. So I kind of like start going down, and I like try all these other trails, and they just keep feeding back into the same place. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I climb all the way back up to like my starting point. Like I came out at this spot. What do I do? So eventually I figured out what had happened. Well, I get out a compass finally, like, you know, let's go, like compass.
That's still a thing.
Yeah. Well, on your phone, dude, like, you know, like you don't need internet for that. So I'm like, okay, finally take out a compass. And then I realized I'm like, looking down the hill, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's facing north. I live to the south. So like I go over the top of the mountain, and then realize that the trail I was looking for was on the other side. So like somehow when I was in the woods, I went around the mountain and came out on the other side. So I was thinking I was in the same place, but I wasn't. Like I actually was, like, because I'm not going to go any more in depth than that because I confused like the two other people that I tried to explain this to. But essentially speaking, I came out in the wrong place. I should have used a map. I should have used a stupid compass. But eventually I figured it out. And an hour later than I expected, I got back to my car.
Sounds like my Utah trip.
Yeah, it was like, and I was so tired by the end.
Yeah.
But also on Saturday, I kind of had an interesting experience in the fact that we have like a train station here. We have an Amtrak station in Harrisburg, which I've never lived near one of those in my life. So I'm like, this opens up a gateway of possibilities to me. And I'm like, I want to try, you know, just taking one down like a stop or two and then coming back, see what the experience is like. So I'm going down there, but I'm like, I'm going to be late. I'm not going to make it. So I'm decided like, I'll just scout the thing out just to see what it's like. So next time I come, I'm not like rushing. I'll be like, oh, I know where to park. Like I know where this is. But down in Harrisburg, like where the Amtrak station it wasn't necessarily like the bad side of town. Like I thought I was in danger or something, but like it is more homelessness than I think I've ever seen in one place in my life. Like it was like near where the parking place was, there was like a shanty town essentially of people living in tents. And it was heartbreaking. It was literally one of those moments where it just like hurt me so much. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to react. I don't know what to do. And like, it's one of those moments where you feel so helpless. Like, you're like, I know I'm supposed to love these people, but I don't know how to do it. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to react to this. So that's a thing I'm praying to God about and contemplating. But just it was heavy because I didn't ride a train or anything. I just kind of came back and sat here for like an hour or two, just kind of meditating or like just kind of being almost shell shocked of just like so much homelessness that like I don't know for sure, but like I don't even think there'd be a place like that in Scranton anywhere, because I guess Scranton's probably not a very hospitable city to the people who are homeless, but like it just anyway. But taking it back into the more positive direction. So then on Sunday, we had a really big event for the diocese. It was called Get Connected. It was brought all young adults from all the dioceses, and it was a really good turnout, and I was very excited about it. We had like 100, maybe 75 to 100 people from like 10 or 12 different groups. Some of them I did not know about, which is great for me because I got to like meet the leaders, I got to meet the people, and I got to like see this network and know that like we have a strong ministry. We just need more visibility, which was really awesome to be there. And then I also got to welcome our guests to the diocese, Meg Hunter Kilmer, and I was like her, like, you know, this is where you're staying, and like this is I'll show you around and all that stuff. And so it was good to meet her. It was good to show around. It's just that good sense of accomplishment that like my boss is like, I don't think I can make it. Can you do this for me? And I was like, yes, I got it. And like knowing I have that trust, like it just feels good. And that like I was able to, follow up on that. And then today we had a retreat with her as ministers, just the 4 of us in our department. And it was really good. And she gave us a really good talk about ministry. And we just hung out with her and we had lunch and everything. It was a really good way to spend the work day, a good way to start out the work week. And it was a very nice day out weather-wise. But yeah, it was and there was lots of other stuff that happened over the weekend, but like that was the basic stuff. And it just was really good. It was really busy and like a lot of interacting with and talking to people and a lot of catching up with people. And now you guys. So yeah, that was my long explanation of my busy weekend. Getting lost, encounter with the homeless, events, guest, retreat, done.
Excellent.
All right, Joe. You go.
Yeah. Well, first off, I'll say I have experienced that feeling of hopelessness in how to react to seeing homelessness as well. And it's not easy. And I did the same thing as trying to process the situation too. So I know wherever I speak in that situation too. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
It's so tough. It's like such a hard reality. And you want to do stuff, but you like it's so hard to even know what to do.
Yeah, and there's like a fear in you still too of doing it. Like there's a level of helplessness, and that's like part of the block, but part of it is just being afraid too. Like it's just something for some reason a lot of us are just afraid of going out to help for whatever reason it is, whether it's putting ourselves out there or just like not the unknown nature of it, or just like it's.
I think for me, like when I
like,
experience that, it's like I don't know what this person will be like.
Sure.
I don't know if they'll attack me or if they'll be in a place where they're not. Like you just don't know. In that regard. But still, I mean, they deserve love. It's not like they're not people, And I feel they treat them like our society treats them as though they're not people.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. It's broken, and hopefully someone can do something about it.
So it's just figuring out what God wants me to do with that information now. So I'm just trying to sit with it and wait till He reveals that. So what He wants me, how He wants me to react. So.
Well, definitely pray. I'm sure you know that already. But
yeah, there's no way I'm gonna figure it out unless I talk to him about it. So
yeah.
So what were you saying, Joe? So Joe, how was your week, man?
Okay. Well, my sister ran a marathon. As has become her strength since 2014 was her first marathon, and I gotta say, like my commendament to her. That's something that is her niche and something that she is truly proud of. So I woke up at about 6:50 to get there to her, and it was pretty easy to navigate the city where I'm living, because it was only about 10 minutes away from where I live. It was fantastic. But she wasn't exactly pleased with her time. And another person I talked to, actually, basically this is a totally separate person, but after their race they told me that like I wake up to run at like 4 a.m. Nobody knows like how like hard I work. They weren't pleased with their time as well. And like I just felt so sorry for them, because like they like over a time or two they haven't really been like pleased with their times, just because of other bodily issues that they had been dealing with. And it was hard to like console them, because you don't see their struggle, because waking up at 4 a.m, you don't see them train. You work. I work out myself around that time too, but you don't really see them run at that point in time when everybody else is basically asleep.
For a marathon. People are competitive about their marathon times.
When you get up to a certain
about their own PRs.
Anything.
Wow.
I mean, it's not competitive as much as like self-improvement. Like, they weren't talking about place as much as.
For me, it's like you did it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the first time you do it, that's probably the way it is. But then the second time, it's like, well, what's the point if I don't do it
what
faster?
can I do more of?
Okay.
So that was that. Babysat the niece while that was going on, just a little bit, not too much. Mostly saw her after. Had some great lunch with the family. Then came back here, played a little guitar, and then after church on Sunday, while my sister, my brother-in-law, and my niece were actually in your neck of the woods, Josh, I watched their dog for about 5 hours. He was very chatty, golden doodle, and he's literally the size of Chewbacca.
Nice.
And yeah, so had to edit the episode 2 during that time. But yeah, it was good.
Thank you for that, Joe. Thank you.
Absolutely, my
Appreciate you.
pleasure.
Gotcha.
So being in that being in that area with literally Chewbacca was yeah, just what the doctor ordered.
Let me hear your guys' best Chewbacca impression.
Oh, I don't even want to try. No. There you go. I'm not even gonna try.
I can't do it.
I can't.
I've done it once well in my life, and I have not been able to do it since.
My one friend, my former roommate, he actually does a pretty good job.
I used to do a very good Gollum impression.
The Andy Serkis impression, where
yeah, but not anymore.
Literally,
once I encountered puberty, not anymore.
What does that say about Andy Serkis?
That man has a deep voice.
Well, something about those voice artists, like you just do it long enough, and your vocal range just goes to like.
I have to say, he did a actually. I listened to an audiobook of The Hobbit, like
it's on
2 years ago, and
YouTube?
it's Andy Serkis. He does it, and he does all the voices. He does songs. He like sings the songs that's in The Hobbit, and I was like, this is the best thing ever. He does the accents and all that. It's like wow.
Yeah.
So I recommend it. If look up Andy Serkis's audiobook of Hobbit.
Yeah, voice actors, they do not get a good enough rep, I don't think.
No.
Even though Andy Serkis is also a live action actor and he's like a CG actor. He's literally everything. But like voice actors, they don't get enough props for what they do.
No.
Like I can maybe talk in like 2 or 3 different voices. They like maybe, and they're not even that good. These people talk in like hundreds of different
people.
Yeah. They can literally be their own TV. Like I know you guys aren't into like the Star Wars like animated stuff, but I think it's D. Bradley Baker. He's like all the clones, like
yeah.
He
Clone
like
Wars,
voices each one slightly different, and it's like insane. It's like there's hundreds of characters this guy is playing theoretically, even though they're like made from the same person. Like you know, like but it's crazy how he just puts a different little inflection on all of them. They all sound different. And like there's the one show that's out now, it's called like The Bad Batch, and it's just funny to think about like all 5 characters are voiced by him, so it's literally just him talking to himself like the entire recording session and like one other person. That's it.
But who did it first, Josh? Was it Seth MacFarlane? All those different voices of himself. You get Stewie.
Yeah, Seth MacFarlane.
He's talking to himself too. Yeah, that I gotta watch myself some Clone Wars, Zack. Thank you.
I mean,
all
the classic people. You get Tara Strong, you get Tom Kenny, like all the people that we grew up listening to.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, Tom Kenny. Yeah, he's got quite the range on him.
That Tara Strong, she's done like a million things too.
She's like in all the Nickelodeon stuff. All the
Nickelodeon, Timmy Turner and all those voices.
Yeah, all the prepubescent boys. It's like, well, I'm making my living voicing males as a female.
It's interesting, right? Interesting. It works though.
Yeah, it does. Fooled me.
All right, so I had a crazy week, a lot going on, a lot of good things. I won't run through every day, but basically it was just a ton of music. We did a lot of traveling, a lot of sports, which was fun. Tennis, and we had a family community like softball game, which is really fun. The team that I was on lost. It was 14-12, so it was close.
Oh, that's a good game though.
Yeah. Well, it was really, really fun. And I always get nervous because I'm not like a crazy athletic person, but I did really well. I'm like proud of how I did. And I was practicing, and I hit a home run in my practice session. And I was
there
like,
you go. Look at
it. But there's this other guy his name is Chris. And I was the first time I ever met him. He's like he's a college kid. And he literally, every time he got up, he hit a home run. And it was amazing. And we were like rooting him on. And it was just a lot of fun.
No wonder he was invited in. No.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no one really knew him.
You must have said a touchdown.
Yeah, that's what he said, yeah.
Could you imagine? Oh my gosh, you're so good. So 3 points.
Guys, I scored a goal.
That's 3 points, right? Yeah, so that was awesome, and like a lot of music stuff. So we did. I'm just suddenly blanking on everything that I did. But
It was just
I did a band session, which was really cool. So on Sunday, I had reached out to a couple of people, a drummer who actually is a guitarist, who I didn't know was a guitarist, but guitar is his lead instrument, but he's played drums for us in the past. I was like, hey, like, you want to just play sometimes? Like, I'd love to do a band. He's like, yeah, why don't you come over on Sunday? So we did, and had brought a bunch of people over, and we just played for like 4 hours, and we just did Beatles and like all the stuff. Because he's like this amazing musician, and I had no idea how good he was. And he would just kept saying like, oh, can we play this song? And be like, yeah, let's do it. And then we would do it. And like literally, that was like 4 hours. We put like 15 Beatles songs, and like Blink 182, and like Metallica and Judas Priest, and like all these things. It just like came out of nowhere, and it's like this is magical, and it's so much fun. So that was really cool. And then a bunch of other stuff happened, but it was just a lot of good stuff, you know, a lot of traveling, a lot of good family time, but then also like retreats, and I was working a lot, which is good. So I got a couple high schoolers that were asking me to do music for them, so I like traveled a couple different places to do music at retreats. And yeah,
You have been having some pretty good weekends, Josh.
yeah, it's been solid. I've been pretty busy. Been pretty busy. Which is nice because it's all fun things, you know, it's all fun things. But how I feel, and even the missus now, because she's the opposite of me in this for the most part, but we're getting to the point where like, let's just be home. Let's just try to, let's take care of the nest a bit. Let's rebuild the nest. It needs a little rebuilding.
Need some more twigs, you know, to add to the nest.
And the dishes need to be done, which I did them this morning. So thank you. Where's the applause?
Thanks, Josh, for that.
I'm gonna applaud myself. Taking one for the team, but no, it's okay. But yeah, that's me. I've been playing a lot of guitar too, which I've been so excited about. I've been doing lots of guitar playing.
Before we started recording, anybody listening, Josh and I were just showing some stuff.
Yeah, and Zack was watching.
Which that was one of my resolutions for the year. Because I wanted to practice more guitar and more drums this year, and so far I've been doing both that, which is pretty cool. The only thing I haven't done on my resolution list is lose my goal weight, which is not going to happen this year, but hopefully next year.
You have quite a few months. Just stop eating.
I won't eat again until the new year.
Just call it a fast. Just go.
I mean, it would work.
I mean, you could survive on water for 2 months.
Yeah.
Can you really might not be very happy or energetic.
Yeah. Can you live if you're just drinking water for 2 months? I feel like would you need? I guess if you're my size, you would be okay, right? Because your body would go through the fat stores and all that.
Eat our organs.
Muscles. And
how long does it take to starve? I know, like, you dehydrate to death way faster than you starve.
I always thought it was like a month that you die after.
If you stop eating and drinking, death can occur as early as a few days, though for most people, approximately 10 days is the average. What happens if I don't eat for? You can survive longer than 7 days, though.
Yeah. Well, what if you're drinking and not eating?
Drink, but not eating.
Why not use? How long can I survive on just water?
I should have written that. How long can you live without food? Okay, perfect.
A human can go without food for about 3 weeks.
Actually, I can just share this. What am I doing?
But would only typically last 3 to 4 days without water.
Let me see. Time period varies.
It was weird. For a brief time, I was getting these ads, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, that was saying like, I know like this guy that was saying like, if you want to lose weight, just like he had a whole program of like, just don't eat for 2 weeks. And that was his whole thing, was like, don't eat for 2 weeks and you'll be fine.
Yeah, it says your body can maintain itself for a week or two without access to food and water, and possibly even longer if you consume water.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
But I think the starvation model tends not to work because your brain is like,
a habit either.
I need to eat.
Yeah.
And then when you can't eat again, you freak out probably.
Well, yeah, if you know that that story about Holocaust survivors, you know, their stomachs shrunk so much that when they even had just like a tiny like bit of bread, like this much, like they died because their stomachs were shrunk so much. Like that's horrible.
I don't know if they would die. They might like vomit though. Would they die?
They died from that
Oh.
Well, I remember
because their stomachs were shrunk so much that it just like exploded.
bursted their stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember when there was that like accident in Chile or whatever that trapped those miners underground.
The miners,
and they had to like bring them out. I remember this was in the movie part that I saw this, but this was probably true. Is that when they finally got to them and they had to start giving them food, they had to start by giving them liquid food, like for like a while before that they could.
Well, it's like having
solid
children. It's having children, right? That's what you need because when the baby's born, their stomach is the size of a pea,
Mm-hmm.
and so they have to just have a very small amount of breast milk just to get it started, and then as every feed it like grows exponentially, so that they're able to actually like take it.
You're blowing up a balloon.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to gross anyone out who's listening to us.
Yeah. Very
so, gentlemen, actually, I think this is a
balloon.
great segue into our topic. For, once again, I am going to quote from Matthew.
Because it hurts your stomach when this happens?
What? Oh, well, no, it's...
a quote. A scripture.
Hold on a second. I had it. Oh, yeah. Matthew 15, verse 10. Says, and he called the people to him and said to them, hear and understand, not what goes into the mouth defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth defiles a man.
Like
so
vomit.
We were talking about what was going in, but now we're going to switch to talking about what's coming out. And what is that, my friends?
That actually was a very good segue.
Someone want to finish the sentence?
I'm just impressed. The segment was phenomenal.
Oh, you're welcome. Gossip, where everyone knows.
I think he deserves a round of applause, Josh.
Oh, totally. I'm gonna ride this one out.
So, yes, today we're talking about the sins of speech, most importantly, gossip. But I think we've all found out that gossip actually encompasses a lot of different things. So we're going to be talking about all the different sins.
Do you want to just give a rundown real quick of what all the different types of gossip are?
Okay, so for everyone listening, the 8th commandment talks about how you're not supposed to lie. So we kind of take that deeper in Christianity. It's not just like, oh, you don't lie to people. It's like any of the sins of the speech, any ways you use your words to hurt people, that is, or not testify to the truth, that is considered under that commandment. So hold on 1 second while I pull this up. Here we go. Okay, so a bunch of the different types of gossip. So the first one is reviling, which is defined as dishonoring a person, usually to their face and often in the hearing of others. So you're essentially dissing someone in front of them, like you're talking bad about someone in front of their face. Then there's backbiting, which we literally call these days, we call it talking behind someone's back. It's a secret and quiet injuring of someone's good name to other people. And then that comes in 2 forms, which is calumny, which people who read the Bible might recognize that word, which is telling lies about someone behind their back. So saying things that are not true. If you do that anybody who knows the word slander, that's the written version of it. So if you write things and publish things that are not true about people, that's what that's called. Detraction, which is passing on harmful truths, which is kind of the opposite. So this idea is that what you're saying is true, but it's harmful to the person's reputation, or they asked you to like keep it a secret and you did not keep that trust, and it's somehow negatively impacting their lives, or you're telling truths that aren't necessary to tell. Then there's what's called tale-bearing, which is kind of like the rumor mill, so to speak, is that you're crafting false stories that make people sound bad, or that are trying to elicit a response from said person in some way, shape, or form. Derision, which is making fun of people and usually like mocking them, essentially. If you mock someone, that's derision. So it's making fun of a person, perhaps of their mannerisms, perhaps a physical trait or a personal quality. It's like lighthearted is one thing, but if you stray into when it becomes hurtful and humiliating, and it diminishes someone's standing, then it becomes sinful. And then finally, cursing, which is wishing ill upon somebody. So like anytime you wish ill upon a person, that is cursing. So people might think of cursing as saying particular words, which usually all of those infer that you want something bad to happen to that person. But it's anytime you wish ill upon somebody, that is cursing.
Yeah,
So
definitely. And I think that's a great summary of everything. We kind of dive more into that in a little bit. But if it's okay, can I just read a passage from James real quick?
oh
Absolutely.
yes, go
That's
for
like
it.
the part about the tongue. So this is James 3, chapter 3, verses 4 through 6. Consider the ships as well, although they are so large. As my Long Island is coming today.
Large.
Although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot is inclined. In the same way, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it boasts of great things. Consider how small a spark sets a great forest ablaze. The tongue also is a fire, a world of wickedness among the parts of the body. It pollutes the whole person, sets the course of his life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. Whew.
Ouch.
Dangerous, right? It just shows the
Yeah.
power of the word, right? The power of the tongue, and like what we can do. We can destroy everything. Like it can be very destructive. So go ahead, Joe.
Yeah. This idea that the tongue is, or just anything like the word, as they say, they say the pen is mightier than the sword, but the idea is that words can be more dangerous than weapons. That
it can
our
cause
tongues are.
so much misery for all parties for what you say.
Yeah, and it's such a, it's like, and there's kind of this the first youth group that I ever had as a youth minister, I wanted to talk about the power of words. And something that really stuck with me was like in John chapter 1, right? When like, the word was word was with God, and the word, was God. And like talking about Christ as being like incarnate of the word, right? And then we look at the book of Genesis and how God created everything, right? He created it through his speech, through saying, here it is, and then there it is, let there be, and it was, through his speaking, he was able to create. And since we were made in his image, there's kind of this like reflection of the Father within us, that our words have a lot of power, that we can kind of create, that we can destroy with the words. And so I just thought that was a pretty interesting reflection on that reality of looking at our fallen nature in relation to God's, creation, and how we can destroy with our words.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
It kind of reminds me, I mean, I guess I'm going to mention this before maybe the opportunity fails, but actually right now in this very moment, I'm rereading like the Chronicles of Narnia series, because I really like that series, even though it's mostly for children, but there's just so many deep truths in it from C.S. Lewis.
I just read Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe like maybe like a month ago.
Well, I'm literally like, I think I'm on the last one right now. But I literally just read The Magician's Nephew, which talks about like, so I'm not sure if you guys have read it, but like the White Witch kind of comes from a different world before she shows up, and like in The Magician's Nephew, she kind of comes from a different world, which she just herself destroyed with something that's called the deplorable word, which has a lot of symbolic significance for a bunch of different things. Like some people think it's like symbolic of like the atomic bomb and things like that, but like that one action could destroy all of life. But this idea is that C.S. Lewis made it a word, that like a word could destroy an entire world, like, and that.
Yeah, and he got a lot of that stuff from Tolkien, because that was in the lore of Tolkien, right? Like the Middle Earth was created by the higher ups, like the god figure who sung the world into existence. He like spoke it into existence the same way. Yeah.
Which the same way that's how Aslan brings the world into existence, is through song. But yeah, this idea is that words can, obviously, as we talk about, like in the singing, like words can bring up, and the words can equally destroy. Like and it's like one word. It's like one word can destroy so much, and like we can do the same thing. Like maybe we're not going to destroy the planet, but like we can destroy someone's lives with one word. That's crazy. And like that. Well, this article I was reading in reference to it, which is actually by a priest whose name is, hold on one second, Monsignor Charles Pope. But he talks about, hold on, I lost it. Oh, one of the most precious things a person has is their reputation, for on it rests their capacity to interrelate with others and engage in just about every other form of human interaction. It is a very serious thing, therefore, to harm the reputation of another. And while this harm may sometimes be mild, we ought not to easily dismiss the possibility that what we think might be a small matter might actually cause greater harm than we imagine. So that like this idea is that we are harming something that is important. Like with trivial speech. And that maybe people don't think that like their reputation is important sometimes. Like people, like our culture makes sometimes it sound like it's like, oh, if you hang on to your reputation too much, that you're being proud. But like that doesn't mean that it's not value, like your reputation is not valuable. You know, that's why like the sin of scandal is a thing. You know, like this idea is like you as even a Christian person has to have a good reputation as
Because
best you can.
God uses that. He uses
Yeah.
that, you know, for his good.
So so yeah, literally just I don't know, because gossip can attack that, and that's it's hard. It sucks and it's hard.
I hate gossip, man. I hate it so much.
Yeah.
It's agonizing.
Yeah. So like, what are your experience? What are you guys' experience with gossip? Is it mostly like? Would you say your personal experience is mostly like, you know, with it towards you, or like it towards another person? Like, you know, like are you? I don't know. Were you the bystander when like it was happening to someone else? Like, you know, like I don't know. Maybe let's personalize it a little bit more. I suppose. Like, what are our own experiences with gossip?
Sure, I
What
could
we're
go.
all willing to share, and without necessarily implicating anybody. But
Yeah, I'd say as I was growing up, I had a mix of the two. I'd say that I was a person that gossiped and also a person that wasn't a bystander. As far as that, kind of just let it be. Didn't always stick up for the people that it was being talked about, talking behind people's back. And also, I've been a victim of it myself as I've grown older. I think one of the reasons that we are a bystander is because we're insecure about our own reputation. We're insecure about the friend group that we have, and we want to be able to be with the in group if we are gossiping. You know what I mean? In a way, it comes from insecurity. I didn't originally plan to talk about that, but it also comes from resentment. You know, you're envious about not having what you want. You know, you're envious of the limitations that you have and seeing it in other people that they're being successful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in my experience, it was one of those things where growing up, my mom instilled in me at a young age that like you don't do this, like you don't gossip, you don't talk about people, you don't do that, you don't do that, and it's been ingrained within me to the point where like if in like middle school and high school, if people were doing that, I would walk away. Like I would be like, I'm not participating in this. And if it were friends of mine, I'd be like, don't do this. Like, don't do this, man. Like, think about what that person's going through. Like, why are they the way that they are and all that stuff. And I remember one of my first experience with that was in elementary school. And there was a person, a student who had a horrible home life, parents abusive, did not take care of them. And so because of that, they always had a smell about them. And everyone in the class was just would treat this person horribly. And a couple of times, it'd be like one of those things where like people were like, would be around and like talking horribly and all this stuff. And eventually I mustered up the strength, was like, you guys need to stop. Like, stop. You need to stop this. And I was able to stand up for her. And then the teacher found out about that. And then the kind of a little more came into it. But then what happened is this person would always sit next to me. Like the teacher put this person next to me like all the time.
Yeah.
And she was so appreciative. And like it was one of those things that like it just so like stays with me, that when people mistreat others, they don't like it's just like it's just horrible because this poor person was just so hurt by her family constantly, and nobody cared about that enough. They just noticed something that was repulsed them, and then they just had to destroy it, be mean. And from that point on, it like stuck with me that like I'm gonna stick up for people. And so I would do that, and actually to a fault. Sometimes I would get into fights with people about the stuff like that. Like if people were mistreating them, I would take them outside and like punch them and stuff after school. But then I learned that you shouldn't do that. But that was in like middle school. I would like stand up for, like I was the bully of the bullies. Like, but then Yeah, and I think we've all experienced stuff like that. We've all experienced in some kind of facet, whether it's happening around us or
Trying to figure out
um,
how to counteract with
Yeah.
a certain
yeah,
form of
yeah.
justice.
I think as I've gotten older and the culture has changed because I live in a very different place to where I grew up. Um, it's gotten easier to do, and I found myself the past couple of years kind of almost more geared towards that because I'm just around it constantly now, and like I can't even run from it.
Hmm.
But at the point where if I leave, it's like I'm running to somewhere where there is more gossip. It's like everywhere in the culture that I'm in. So it's one of those things that it's like becoming normal, and I hate that. So I'm really glad that we're talking about this because I want to like fight it again.
Yeah.
So I got a little emotional there.
That's okay. That's what makes things effective.
Right.
That's when we get to that point.
I still
like,
think
when it's
about that girl to
personal.
this day. I mean, it was agony seeing how these people were treating her, and like I just, oof.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, I hate gossip too because it brings up two other things that I hate, like more like kind of subdivisions. So like gossip kind of is an indicator for two different things. One is like phoniness. I hate to sound like Holden Caulfield here, but like phoniness, like this idea is that people act one way in front of you and they act different behind your back. Like I hate that. Like not being genuine. Like I hate that. Like I absolutely hate that. I try my best not to be that. Like, but like I absolutely hate that. I'd rather people be honest, like to me, and be like, yeah, you don't like me, and that's okay. We'll deal with that. But like I hate like when people are like, oh, we'll pretend you like you, and then like not like you behind your back. Like I that is one of the things I can't even necessarily put into words like a more descriptive way of saying that, but I don't like it when people are not genuine. Not saying that being openly, as we said, like in the different types, like insulting someone in front of their face is still bad.
Yeah.
But I just always think that doing it in secret, like behind someone's back, is just so much worse.
Yeah.
And the other thing I really hate about gossip, or I hate about gossip, is like literally one of my number one things that I do not like is exclusion. And not just from like me personally. It's like, oh, I hate being excluded from things. I hate seeing other people excluded from things.
But the worst part is when they know that they're being exclusionary.
Oh, exactly. I think most people that are being excluded understand
they
that
know
they're
it
being
because they've
excluded.
felt it.
It doesn't go over most people's heads. Like they see it, like that you are being excluded, and like gossip promotes that because like I was always like I hate it when I saw people like sitting alone. Like I hated that. Like I hated that. It took a lot of courage. Like I didn't always want to have to be the person to do it, and I feel bad that like internally I didn't, and I didn't do it every time. But like there are a lot of times I'd be like, if someone was sitting by themselves, I would like go be with them because that sucked. And I'm like, and I didn't really care like if what people said about it. Like I always try to be that guy. If someone was being excluded for some reason, or like someone was talking because especially someone was talking bad about them, I was trying to be like, I'm going to be there with you.
Yeah.
Now I feel bad sometimes in certain circumstances that I didn't like more vocally stand up for them. I didn't like deride the people and be like, you guys are not doing what you're doing is not right. I just kind of like walked away from it and then just was with the other person. Like I didn't, but I wish I would have been more
confrontational.
Yeah, or just been like, stop. But instead of being like, say, stop, I just would leave and then hope like, I hope my actions speak more. Like I hope just like being with the other person is like enough. Or but I hate exclusion, and gossip promotes exclusion because like it could spread from just one person not wanting to associate themselves with another person, but then they start like almost recruiting people to not. Like the other people don't see a reason not to be with the other person until like this person starts gossiping about them. Be like, oh, like now I feel like I have to not sit with them, or like I have to not talk to them, or like and I hate that about gossip. I hate that, and like half the time it's not true, or half the time it's like something that only the core person believes, like the chief gossip starter, like is literally like the only person who actually really believes it, and the other people are just kind of like a weak belief of a belief, or like peer pressure or whatever. Like they don't actually really kind of buy into it, but they're like, oh, better safe than sorry type of deal. And I hate that. Like all these people that it could be fine. They could socialize with the other person, and they just don't because one person said something bad, and it just it breaks my heart. I hate it. I hate it. Even if the stuff is true, sometimes like I hate it. It's just like like slandering, like, or what was the word? Calumny. So would that be calaming someone? Calumning someone? I don't know what the verb would be, but even if it's true, like I hate it. Like I hate talking bad about people. Oh, now I'm starting to get irate here, Josh. Now, like, you got me going.
I think there's like this line, right? And it's obvious it's a hard line to find, but I feel like, correction is something that is important and it's necessary. But I think it's one of those things that like it just shouldn't be public and it shouldn't be with strangers. Like it should always be like there's that line where it's like if your brother sins, then you need to take him in private and tell him talk to him in private and say, what did you do? Like you shouldn't do this. And so I think that it's just something that I totally lost my train of thought here. But you know what I'm saying? Like truth with regards to someone, if it's not bashing their character, like we can be critical of people, but you have to do it in a way that's charitable and like seeing them for who they are, and especially if it's a friend of yours, not if it's like an acquaintance or a stranger. Like you shouldn't just bash, like
because I find if you do it in public, that will make them more and more closed off, and even try to attack you in retaliation.
No, yeah.
Like I can't even imagine.
You can't
how
do
that
that as a human, no, not at all.
Other than like an intervention or something when someone seriously needs help, like like that's completely different. But that's like a very extreme circumstance that you should be going through a lot of other stuff first. But like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about lines a little bit, because gossip in a lot of its different facets kind of has a lot of gray lines or like blurry lines as to what. So like,
what do we think about like venting? You know what I mean? Like, what if
that's
someone?
What I was gonna.
And I think that's the line, because I feel like oftentimes when the majority of people talk about people, they kind of use it as like, I'm venting about a scenario. Like maybe they've been wronged and they want to talk about something. And I feel like that's like a hard thing to walk, because I mean, I feel like how many times you had a bad day at work and you want to go home and tell your significant other or someone or family or friend, or like, you never guess what happened to me, like what this person did or whatever it is. And so like I feel like, so how do we feel with that? Like, does that count as gossiping? I mean, I guess if you're bashing the person then that wronged you or whatever, I don't think it may not be justified, but like obviously your emotions are a certain way and you should get them out.
I guess it depends partly. Well, first of all, it depends on is your intent, does it damage their reputation in some way, shape, or form that's detrimental to them? Are you shaping their image negatively in the eyes of the person you're talking to? And like, what's the intent behind like venting to the person? Is it really just to say bad things about them? Are you looking for advice on how to deal with it? Like, who are you talking to? This is why I think like something like, for example, if you're just venting to someone and you're just like throwing it out there, you're just like, boom, like this person sucks. And I guess it depends. Like if you're describing the event versus like, if you start going into like, this person's a bleepity bleepity bleep because they did this, like if you're super uncharitable about it, then that's obviously gossip. If you like take it way too far of like, now you're insulting their character on top of like what they did or cursing them, like that's crossing a line. But like, if you're talking, I don't know. I think it depends on who you're talking to. Because if, like, for example, you're talking to a therapist, because part of therapy is like describing situations to your therapist to be like, I'm frustrated by this. I don't know what to do or how to handle it. And the point is that this is like the confidentiality, and like they're not really supposed to be revealing it to anybody else. It's not really supposed. The therapist really doesn't know this other person. Like they're very neutral, third party, like removed from the situation, and they're really just supposed to help guide you, like in a professional sense. I think that is okay. And because you're not trying to further your social status or anything like at the therapist, like you're not trying to, you don't have an ulterior motive, so to speak. Or like a priest, like if it's part of your confession that you kind of need to describe how you got to a certain place, like maybe, or like a spiritual direction or something. I think that's fine. Like I would think that that's fine, because like the intent is to better yourself or to figure it out or problem solve, and you're using the appropriate avenues. What if I don't know, I just really feel
tough,
like,
man, that's tough. It's a place to be.
Versus, I mean, granted, you are married, Josh, you have more experience in this regard. I think it is perfectly fine because we vent to our significant others all the time, and it has nothing to do with social status at that point in time. With friends, that makes a different story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because that's kind
Um,
of the example that I was thinking. It was like if I've like an example, if I've been wronged at a work, and I have been, many times, where I'll go home and say like, Claire, like I had such a rough day. This person did this to me. Like I'm so upset that they did this person, but then it goes to a place where like this person's awful. Like how could they do that? And then I think that might be too
Yeah.
far, right?
It's one thing to describe like what occurred because that's still true.
Mhm.
And you're not necessarily saying it to like always to ruin your bad name. You're just trying to say it to help like process it,
yeah,
so to speak, with like
Yeah,
someone you
yeah.
trust, someone that's confidential. Like some
Well, I
you're
guess that's
not
what venting is you're trying to
yeah.
process like what just happened. Like I need to talk about this. Especially
Yeah.
me, like I'm an external processor type.
Yeah.
It's like I have to talk about things in order to like even understand what's going on. Like, so yeah.
I think it depends on who, because obviously it's
Right.
your wife. It's very confidential. She cares about you. She's like trying to, and she's not going to go spreading it around to other people. Like,
Right,
but
right.
if you did it like with your coworker, I think that's a little different
Hmm.
because it's like you're very in the same space as
Right, right,
them, and like that can easily
it's dicey.
get out. Like, and not saying like the ease of spread is like the litmus test for like what's gossip and what's not gossip, but
Mhm.
like I think it's really got to be like to the appropriate parties when it comes to venting, and you got to really be careful, like I guess with your intention of like
Sure.
why are you saying it? Like if you're saying it to like I'm trying to process what happened versus like I'm trying to eventually like expose this person for what they are and
Yeah.
who that. Yeah, I
You're,
guess that's
you're trying to build up a case of like how do I get them next? You know what I mean? That's
yeah.
and that's different. That's bad different.
Hmm. Yeah.
You know, like, and here's the thing, gossip, and I didn't know if I was ever going to get to this. It comes from, at least like from a work standpoint, that I've noticed in the last few years. Like it comes from resentment, anger about not getting the things that you want to, and your limits, and what you don't have, what you do have, and yeah, it just becomes this bottomless pit of just talking and talking and drawl. Uh, where you feel good about yourself like in a short moment, but then you feel awful when you're talking
Mm.
badly about another and you don't want to admit it, and that's the worst part.
Um, yeah, and in
Yeah.
this article here, it talks about like the importance of like it does say seeking personal advice or having necessary conversations with others, when or about someone when they're not present is not necessarily bad, but you got to be very intentional about how you're going. Like, you have to have discretion, and you have to
Yep.
like about what's necessary. Like, if
Mhm.
you don't go beyond what's necessary for the conversation, then like you're still in pretty good okay shape. But if like you be going beyond what's necessary, then all of a sudden now it starts
Yeah.
it starts getting off the rails a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we're supposed to bottle things up though either, because I think that's obviously we've seen in society just in general that that's not healthy, and to like
And
bottle
I think this is another kind of direction I think we can take this into is that I feel like there's this kind of, especially our generation, there's this intense fear and a lack of like ability to handle confrontation, like
Mhm.
like, and especially conflict. And whenever someone wrongs you, there's kind of this like you don't know how to handle it. You don't know how to confront people in a way that's like good and contributes well to a relationship.
Mhm.
You know, as opposed to like, and so that's what happens I think nowadays is we're so we're untrained in the ability to like handle situations, so people tend to just like when they get wrong they just freeze, they get shocked, and then they kind of retreat, and then they go to where they're comfortable, and then they
Right.
kind of open up and bash and say like all
Yeah.
this stuff.
And that's why it's been so comfortable behind a screen for the last 20 years or so with
Yeah.
I will say social media, but it's been that's the beauty of it in a lot of people's minds, that you can gossip and talk crap behind that that
Mhm.
veil.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I feel like social media has fueled this train a little bit too much because of the anonymity behind it, and like the idea
Victim.
is that anything, like literally any sort of post of any kind that would ruin anybody's reputation, there's no doubt about that. That is wrong. That is sinful. Like anything that would destroy someone's reputation, um, that you intentionally put out there, especially in spite. Like there's no justifying, none, zero, absolutely none.
It's horrible. Like just the whole idea of that. Man.
But
All right. Well, can we shift it here and try to close this out in a positive way?
Yes,
I
absolutely.
think ultimately, what like people need to remember that we are human, and that human is good, and human equals God loves you. You know, and so we need to remember that like everybody is in a scenario, in a situation where they've experienced thing. Like everyone has experienced pain and brokenness in some kind of fashion that tends to come out in these places, and especially in negative interactions. Like people have been hurt. Like I can think about the times that I've been wronged and people hurt me. Like if you look at their lives, like there's brokenness there, and there's reason for that. And so it's always important for us to remember we shouldn't treat others like that, right? Because we have to understand that like everyone is in a scenario that you may not even understand. You don't even know what people have been through. Maybe people have been, these people you want to bash and hurt and whatever. Maybe they have horrible lives, and you want to contribute to that. Like you want to tear them down even more just because they're sour at you or they look at you a certain way.
Yeah.
Like we got to live above that. We just have to love.
Yeah, you
love.
literally have to, in this case, give them the other cheek.
Yeah.
Literally
this. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, this sin and a lot of other sins is just literally comes down to you are sacrificed. So what Jesus calls us to do is to lay down our lives and sacrifice for the sake of others. So we are laying ourselves down on the altar for the sake of the betterment of other people. When it comes to sin, and most sin, like
laying
pretty
others
much all
down.
sin, you're laying others down on the altar to sacrifice them for your sake.
Yourself.
So what you do with gossip is literally you are sacrificing that other person's reputation, their good name, their everything, their chance at having things that are good, all for the sake of yourself, and which is not good. That's not what God wants. And he put himself down to bring us up, and that's what we're called to do. And so just the biggest thing is just be mindful of your words. I think that's the other thing too. We're not mindful enough of our words in our circumstance. We talk before we think, and everyone wants to have something to say. Like everyone wants to get a word in. And I know I struggle with this too, because anybody who's listening to this podcast knows I love to talk. So like sometimes your mouth runs faster than your brain. And I know all the best people I know when it comes to this particular area, they don't say a lot, but what they say is meaningful, and they always take time before they speak. Like, but they fall into this trap far less because they do that. Like they're intentional about what they say. So sometimes quality is much better than quantity. So I don't know, just be thoughtful and mindful. And even if it's just take a few seconds in a moment, like are you really going to look that stupid for actually like thinking about what you're going to talk about versus like the foot you're going to put in your mouth if you don't?
Yeah.
So be mindful. Just think about what you say.
Right. In addition to those practical elements when it comes to gossiping, could I add some more stuff?
Sure.
I loved, first off, I think it was Zack that said the whole thing about using discretion, that whole thing about towing the line between gossiping and venting. And of course that would take practice, especially if you're young and listening to this right now, because a lot of these examples that we had brought up were definite memories, at least for myself in middle school and high school, when we're just starting to learn these social interactions, when we're just starting to, get a feel on our insecurities, because that's where I definitely gossiped and had to trial and error it. So yeah, use discretion. Another one is be aware that if you're around gossiping people, and they gossip to you about somebody else, always know that nine times out of 10, 99% of the time, actually, they're going to gossip about you, so be careful of your inner circle. Be intentional about your inner circle as well.
That's good.
And the likelihood that they're going to mimic, that you will mimic what they are doing, is very high if you still hang around them, so be careful of that friend group. You are your friends, which is very true. And then lastly, it might not seem similar, but find a task. A lot of, like I said before, gossip that comes from your insecurities and resentment. So find a task, however tiny it is, and work to completing it. Build it from the ground up, and like be praying to God about it, because he is your deliverer, and he will help you accomplish what you want to. Because if it adds value and character to your life and other people's lives, he'll be moving.
Yeah, and be the change. Like, you should be the change. If you're in a friend group where this is happening, if your friends are doing this, you need to stand up and say, I'm not going to fall down to this. I'm going to stand up for this person who we're talking about and fight against it, because you need to do that. Because again, if you just continue it, then it's just one of these things. It's going to be a cycle. It's going to continue to happen unless you make it stop. So make it stop. Walk away. Make it clear. And I've done this in the past, where like, if people are doing this, I say, guys, can we stop? Can we not do this? And sure, it's uncomfortable, and sure, it's weird, and sure, it like hurts your friendships or whatever, but it's worth it at the sake of saving another person.
Yeah. And like, lastly, kind of what Josh was talking about, that this idea is that there is the sin of complacency. So when you stick around and watch sin happen and you don't do anything to stop it, you are also culpable of sin. So this idea is, I want to say, especially men, like right now, we're a podcast for men, so I want to speak especially to men. Like, people think that gossip is like predominantly like a woman's sin. Like, that's what our culture believes. Like, it's stereotypically that the gossiping is a woman's thing, but like it's not just women. Like, we do it, especially in this our culture that's diminishing physically. Like, the physicality of our culture is diminishing. So like this is a thing for us men too. But as men are called to act, we are called to, manifest action, to be brave, to be courageous, and to do what Josh says. Like, as a man, a real man, when he sees something wrong happening, you stand up and you do something about it. You don't just turn the other cheek. Like, if it's happening to you, it's like you turn the other cheek. But like, if it's happening to someone else, like, you don't just turn the other cheek. You stand up. And that's what we are called to do as men. We're not called to just not participate. We're called to stop it. And I think Josh hit the nail on the head. Like, so for all you men listening, take that to heart.
Just
well
be
said.
a man.
Yeah.
Right.
So who wants to pray?
Anybody want to call to action?
I want to pray. I'll pray it out.
Okay.
Do it.
All right. I'll say for one thing real quick, what we'd like you all to do right now is subscribe to our YouTube channel, Seizing Valor, and also check out our Instagram at Seizing Valor. If you have any prayer intentions, email us, seizingvalor@gmail.com, or if you have any additional comments that you would like to keep private, we totally understand. We are on YouTube and on Spotify. And lastly, on Instagram, please follow us on all those platforms, because it would certainly help on the algorithm as far as YouTube is concerned. But we're trying to build this community, especially for men, because likely with this concept of gossip, it's a very real thing, and we're trying to help build a positive message in a world full of slander and negativity. Take it away, Josh.
All right. Bless the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Thank you for the blessings that you've given us. Lord, we just had a pretty intense discussion about the nature of the evil in the world and the evil that the tongue can commit. But I just pray that we understand, and those listening at home, the nature of our creative and destructive power with our mouth and with our tongues. And just the fact that you gave us the incredible ability to create with the words, that we can uplift, that we can encourage, that we can support, that we can truly build and to create, and to always stay in that place, And Lord, it's easy to fall, and it's easy to be tempted into, hurting others and destructing. And I would argue that it's easier to do that sometimes. But I just pray that we are given the strength, the boldness, the courage to do what we need to do, to stand up, to combat it, to fight it, and to stand up for those who are less fortunate than us, those who don't have someone to stand up for them, especially. I pray that we can be given the courage to do that. And ultimately the boldness, right? The boldness, Lord, and fill us with your spirit so that we can do that in all things, and be with all those who have been hurt as a result of gossip.
Yes, God.
And those who have those wounds and damages from the past, from other people wronging them, and and the injustice of the world and of people. And I just pray that you can love them and let them know that it's okay, that they'll be all right, and to just wrap your loving arms around them and heal those wounds that we all kind of carry as a result of the brokenness of the mouth. But yeah, thank you for all that you've done. And many blessings be with us, strengthen us, embolden us. Let us be good men of faith for the world, for the redemption of the world. We love you. Most precious and holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you all for attending this discussion, and we will see you all next week. Take care.
God bless.